Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's your meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. The left, they're just so damn predictable, right? Anytime a right-wing policy is implemented, it's always a threat to our democracy, a constitutional crisis, or of course some sort of policy reminiscent of what we saw during 1940s Germany. It's just so tiresome, so old, but here we go again. The Trump administration is once again tackling the illegal migration crisis, as well as the waste, fraud, and abuse built into the welfare system and all the entitlement programs. And of course, it's a very complex issue to tackle. If they were just doing their own investigations and deporting people one after another, it would likely take decades before the job is done. And so the Trump administration has been trying to be creative. You know, when it came to the deportation program, they took the CBP1 app and then reformatted it to be a self-deportation tool, which was absolutely genius. And I think well over 1 million people have self-deported already. And so basically, they've been forced to have to tackle these issues with creative measures, and now in comes another creative measure, which the left is now telling us is reminiscent again of the National Socialists, the Nazis of Germany. Yep, always feeding into the same frickin' narrative. Donald Trump's southern border camps, those are not border camps, those are concentration camps, as AOC told us.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border.
ICE agents, when under Joe Biden, are simply immigration agents. But when Donald Trump takes over, the moment that transition kicks in, that democratically approved transition with all the checks and balances in place, no, ICE becomes Donald Trump's personal Gestapo, his jackbooted thugs. And now apparently creating a hotline which allows concerned citizens to report potential violations of constitutional law and American immigration law. Apparently, that's Donald Trump setting up a Nazi fascistic culture of reporting your neighbors to the Trump Gestapo. Oh, here we go again. Some more left-wing hysteria in response to what is really more common sense measures to protect the nation. Let's go ahead and enter this debate, shall we? We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so in comes Scott Turner, hitting us with the latest Trump strategy.
We do believe that public housing should be safe. We believe that, and that's our conviction. A safe community starts with safe housing. If the housing is safe, the community is safe. And we want to take good care of the most vulnerable people in our country. And that means making sure that residents in HUD-funded housing can live their lives in peace and security, free from the horrors of violent crime. That's why HUD today we're announcing a new HUD crime hotline to allow the residents of public housing to call the HUD office of the Inspector General, the OIG, to report criminals, illegal aliens, sex offenders, human traffickers, and those guilty of gang activity, drug distribution, and fraud. We're spearheading this hotline right here for the residents of Memphis, Tennessee. This crime hotline is the latest in a series of action HUD has taken to help the American cities and neighborhoods be safe, including of those who live in HUD-funded housing.
And so instantly, you could probably see where the phony Nazi comparisons are coming from. Immediately, the left-wing argument instantly takes the path of least resistance, the easiest path, and goes straight to, well, this is exactly like Adolf Hitler. This is like someone ratting on their neighbor to the Gestapo. Yeah, it's obvious their brains have one track and one track alone. Donald Trump does anything, even the most common sense governance move, and suddenly it's 1940s Germany all over again. But in my view, that logic is pretty much as dumb as saying that Hitler drank water, and therefore if Donald Trump drinks water, Trump is Hitler. Just because both things involve, reporting on your neighbor doesn't necessarily make it a one-to-one comparison. It does not make them morally or functionally the same. Of course, context is key. In a totalitarian regime, you report people to the secret police because of who they are or what they think. In 1930s Germany, you may snitch on a Jewish family, causing the secret police to then come in and raid their home because of their Jewish descent. Or you could be ratting out a family or an individual who may be resisting the government, a political dissident. And of course, these people disappear with no system and no due process, no transparency, no appeal. Their crime is either their identity or their opinion. The goal, of course, being ideological control, ethnic cleansing, terror. That's what the Gestapo Nazi model is. It's a state that criminalizes existence and thought and then deputizes a terrified citizenry to feed that machine. But what's happening here is the exact opposite. He's not not saying report the Trump critics, report people who question our policies or question our governance. No, he's saying if you know that there's an illegal alien, a registered sex offender, a trafficker, a gang member living in a taxpayer-funded unit, important piece of context, a unit that they're not supposed to be legally occupying, well, call us and we will then enforce the laws, the federal laws that are already on the books. These are not thought crimes. They are very transparent and legally defined violations and laws. And of course, the key distinction, unlike the Gestapo comparison, there is a due process here. A report goes to an inspector general's office, not to a secret police commander who takes his orders from President Trump. No, it's going straight to the system, and then investigators look into it, they confirm status, everything's documented, there's police reports for every act taken. You then confirm criminal activity and enforce the law. If someone is wrongly accused, there's paths to challenge it. I have absolutely no moral dilemma with any of this. It's simply the enforcement of American immigration laws. Yeah, taxpayer-subsidized housing shouldn't be going to illegal criminals, and frankly, not to illegal immigrants at all, unless they have a valid refugee or asylum claim. But speaking of moral qualms, there is actually a moral piece that I guess the left never wants to touch, right? Well, when you let public housing become a dumping ground for illegal migrants, and not to mention career criminals, cartel members, gangs, well, there is a little bit of a moral dilemma there. You are essentially victimizing the law-abiding poor, the people who are struggling to make ends meet and who are stuck now in that criminal environment that you have allowed to fester, not to mention the people who aren't able to get subsidized housing because, well, millions of illegals have taken all the spots across the country. You're essentially shafting your own citizens. You're violating federal law and then patting yourself on the back as having done something compassionate and righteous. What a complete joke of a premise. You're taking the housing stock that was supposed to go to desperate American families, veterans, widows, disabled citizens, and handing a good chunk of it over to people who violated the nation's immigration laws as their first act in the country. You're telling the woman who worked her entire life, who likely paid taxes her entire life, and then maybe hit a rough patch or her husband died or something awful happened to her, and you're saying, oh, well, sorry, we're full. Better luck next time. Also, Tren de Aragua can take over the entire building and run their fentanyl operations out the back door. And I think really this ties into Democrat thinking, the Looney Tune level of thinking coming out of the left. They're always pretending as if they have the solutions to society's complex problems. Yet what they actually support time and time again is rather to feed the crisis instead of fixing it. Or they present a possible solution while simultaneously presenting it alongside, well, how can I describe this other than, I guess, the problem? Democrats are constantly saying we need more programs, more spending, more welfare, a bigger social security net, health care for all, universal health care. But how can you even begin presenting those programs to the public when what you actually believe would collapse those programs within 48 frickin' hours? It doesn't seem like there's any applicable standards for qualification. No, everybody qualifies. It's universal after all. I guess that means not only for everybody in the nation, but everybody in the globe and everybody in the universe. Hey, aliens from planet Gazorpazorp, get on the frickin' UFO and head straight to Zoran Mamdani's New York City, and we'll pay for your health care. Yeah, obviously that doesn't work. These are supposed to be American taxpayer programs for American citizens in need, but instead Democrats want to hand it to any and every one who will enter the country and then of course subsequently vote for them. The whole thing's a racket, it's a scam, it doesn't work. There's no standards anymore when it comes to left-wing thinking and philanthropy. And the unfortunate case of having this worldview, this new age philosophy, is that while you've convinced yourself that you're doing everything for everyone, the reality is there's always someone getting the short end of the stick, and in this case, it's the American taxpayer. It's the American law-abiding citizen. This isn't Nazi Germany. It's not calling the Gestapo on Browns peoples just because of the color of their skin. No, it's a basic hotline to report clearly defined illegal behavior and to clean up the system, to fix the fraud, the abuse, to bring the cost of government down so that government could actually take care of the people that it's supposed to. But of course, according to the left, believing that makes you Adolf freaking Hitler. Go figure. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.